Redemptive Storytelling, condensed from Robert McKee's story and Steve Turner's Imagine a Vision for Christians in the Arts. Redemption is not vengeance. For example, in The Bedroom. I love the movie, but the Miramax marketing department should not have said it's a movie about redemption. Similarly, with Warner Brothers' $1 Million Baby, redemption's not about euthanasia. And finally, redemption is not something to be earned, as in Saving Private Ryan. In that movie, the Army shows the Ryan family grace, not redemption, in sparing the life of the fourth Ryan son after his 3 older brothers had died in combat. Redemption is an inherently spiritual term. By definition, it's the action of being saved from sin, error, or evil. However, it's difficult for contemporary audiences to grasp because it requires something to be redeemed from. Perhaps Flannery O'Connor said it best: redemption is meaningless unless there is cause for it in the actual life we live, and for the last few centuries there has been operating in our culture the secular belief that there is no such cause. Ouch. Question: how do we as Christ followers communicate the need for redemption to a materialistic culture focused on the accumulation of power, wealth, and possessions? Answer: by following Jesus' example. Specifically, he met people on their level, where they were, rather than where he wanted them to be. I love the story of the woman at the well from the Gospel of John, chapter 4, verses 4 through 42. Notice at the beginning of the encounter, he surprises the Samaritan woman by talking to her, because back then women had no status and she was a Samaritan. She was the other, as defined by Jewish culture of the day. Yet their encounter ends with her proclaiming his true identity to all her friends and telling him that she had met the man that had been written about in their prophecies. How many of our encounters with our friends that we have arguments with on Facebook or other means end with them proclaiming that truly we are sons or daughters of the living God? Usually doesn't happen, if at all. And that's why I really love that encounter, because by meeting her where she was, Jesus was able to transform the woman at the well and bring her to his level. He loved her unconditionally, yet still challenged her. More specifically, Jesus told stories. It was one of his primary teaching modes. We call them parables. Parables work because they are metaphors that force the audience to make connections. An exploration of questions equals mystery. How does he start parables? The kingdom of God is like, 12 times alone in Matthew's gospel. And we get parables of the sower, mustard seed, leaven, 10 virgins, etc. One thing that's kind of cool, he only explained 2 parables. I can just imagine the disciples sitting around nodding their heads while Jesus is preaching and talking. And then as soon as he goes over to talk to somebody in private, I can see Peter turning to Luke and, what's Jesus talking about? And Luke just shrugging. I think there are 3 approaches we can use to articulate the need. First off, separation from the divine. We call it sin. It's sometimes a bit of a tough sell for today's secular audiences. Blaise Pascal, French philosopher / mathematician, described the God-shaped vacuum, and there have been many contemporary Christian songs about the God-shaped hole. But I think one of the coolest descriptions is by C.S. Lewis in his autobiography, Surprised by Joy. By the way, I think it's ironic that he wrote that autobiography having no idea that he would meet, marry, and fall in love with a woman named Joy. In that autobiography, he describes Sehnsucht, an intense longing for the other, and that's what propelled his love of science fiction and fantasy as a young man, and eventually led him to Christ. More coming up in part 2.